So can I start off firstly by saying thank you very much for coming. But Yvette, can I ask you to introduce yourself, just to kind of give people a bit of background and understanding as to who you are and what you do, what kind of coaching you specialise in.
Ooh, okay, so thank you for inviting me. I'm very delighted to be here this afternoon. And I'm Dr Yvette Ankrah MBE, and I'm a transformational coach, speaker and consultant. I also now lead a team of 9 associates. This is new for you, Lucy. And my kind of energy and purpose is to help particularly women, high achieving women, avoid burnout. So that's the space that I kind of work a lot in. So I do a lot of stuff on mindset, behavior change, performance coaching. That is the space that I thrive and love to work in. And for me, it's my passion is to see people walk out of a space rather than be carried out, and to kind of thrive rather than just survive. So that's what I do.
What was it that got you into coaching in the first place?
Oh, well, I was one of those people that people came to ask questions of, in an organization, and I was kind of would support people and do things. And I realized that what I was doing was informally coaching. And when I was still working within one of the organizations I worked in, I did a coaching and mentoring course, and I absolutely loved it. I really did. And it was peer-to-peer, supporting colleagues. And I expanded on that. But actually, I spent more time doing sort of more consultancy than coaching. But because I was working with people who had small businesses, you kind of find out that it's not just the business that needs the support, it's the person really. And that kind of evolved much more into coaching. And I then decided I wanted to do a little bit more in the coaching space and delve more. So I did another in-house qualification because I was bootstrapping. I had the day job and then the side hustle, and did another in-house one on coaching as well. And working with the small businesses, I thought, oh, there's something missing. I felt like there was something missing. So I'm an NLP coach. So I'm specifically trained in neurolinguistic programming. So that's my method of working, and a performance coach. And I found that by adding that to my kind of bag of tricks, it meant that people excelled and didn't just sort of do the basics, because you'd see blocks coming up and think, well, we've outlined this, we've made a plan, we've strategized, we've done all this, but nothing seems to be happening. And then you'd find that there's other things that were going on that they hadn't worked through, like their fear of being successful, or worried about what happens, about judgments or things like that. And so a lot of the people sometimes call them the mind monkeys would be going on in here. And I wanted a way to deal with some of that. So I did that via NLP. So that was kind of my journey into coaching. So I sort of did it, learned some more, did it a bit more, did some more training, came back. I'm also now trained in emotional freedom technique as well. So I'm training therapies, and I've brought these various different elements into my coaching practice. So I'm quite a holistic practitioner when it comes to coaching.
Yeah, amazing. And so you've got like a team of 9 associates now, and presumably, how long have you been doing this for?
In terms of actual coaching, I've been coaching for about 8 years.
Yeah.
And the team is new. That was not something I was expecting to kind of have. I was asked to do some work with UCL last year, and they kind of wanted some more people because there's only one of me. So I duplicated myself with associates. There were some other projects I was involved with, and I already was working with other people. I said, would you like to come on board, like formally? And they all said yes. So I've just actually recruited 3 more in the last month.
Yeah.
It's just gone a bit nuts.
Good. Well, congratulations, and even more reason to say thank you for giving us some space today. Stephen, because I know that you're also exploring the kind of coaching thing, and kind of, obviously I know you've got a new role and things, but you've got your qualifications in coaching. I'd quite like to ask you as well, what did you want to kind of hear and learn about with Yvette today? Just make sure that we kind of keep Yvette on, make best use of her time.
Yeah, and for me, it's more about the starting journey. So yes, I've got I'm partway through qualifications in cognitive behavioural coaching. So I've got all of the assignments complete, and it's now just the practical coaching time. But for me, it's about setting up a business, and the starting process of how to get the ball rolling is what I'm quite interested in.
Okay. With anything, if you are actually doing a qualification and you're doing that already, brilliant, because not every coach is qualified, so let's clear that up now. There's, you know, you don't have to be, it's unregulated, but if you are doing a course, it's always useful to use the resources within the organization that you're training with. So do they support you in terms of how to build a business? And one of the things that I have noticed for some courses is that bit is missing. They teach you how to coach, but they don't teach you how to build a business. Yeah, and they're very different things. So if they have something on there, what can you get from there? The other thing is, in terms of when you're doing the practical parts of it, are you doing it where you are? Are you doing it with an organization that you've worked with before? Because often trying to find that first bit is the key. So who is it you're going to be doing your practical bit with? And it's, you know, worth saying, look, if there's an organization you've got your eye on, saying, right, you know, I'm happy to do this. We'll do this piece of work and I'll co-collaborate, and you can do it for a low fee. I don't always say no fee, low fee. And then go in and provide them with support, and then use that as a way of, now you've got a case study, now you've got something to showcase, now you've got something to pitch to somebody else. And you can also then go back into that organization and say, great, we did this piece of work together. What's coming up? How do we expand this? You know, I'd like to support some of your team members. So it's doing that side of it. And the business development side is the hard bit. I'm not going to lie, that's the tricky bit. When I first started and I said, I actually want to do more coaching, I did it for free because I was working with mums, with small businesses in my local community. And I was taking my then toddler to the mum and baby groups, not talking about nappies, I was talking business. And that's how I kind of got people. And I had case studies so I could test my methodology, see whether it worked. Yeah. And then from that, use that to then pitch for other business. And I started networking locally as well. Yeah. So the networking is quite important. You know, you've got a particular niche. Where do these people hang out? Where, you know, are you in those environments already? If you're not, how can you start to do that? And I know you've got a day job. I'm not sure whether you're full-time or not, but they are, with the joys of the internet, we can now network in breakfast times in the mornings. There might be evening networks. There might be lunchtime things. So you may be able to still dip in and out around your work, because those connections that you start building are how you're going to get your clients. Yeah.
And I think, because I think you're also in the north as well, Stephen, because so many of the HR networky things I hear and come across are very much down in London. You've probably got quite a nice sort of captive audience up there, or at least you could create one even. Just, I mean, on that note of kind of starting out, and, you know, it's really helpful hearing that you kind of did some things for free as well as you're learning and getting it. How long do you think it takes to, how long is that process to kind of get established?
Depends how much time and resources and honesty you've got to throw into it. I mean, I was juggling it around an infant and a day job, right? Yeah. Which I wouldn't always recommend, and a PhD at the time, right? So there was a lot of different things I was doing. If you know, you've already got some people, like the low-hanging fruit, people you've worked with before, people you've connected with before, organizations you've already got some relationship with, start having the conversations before you even finish. To start the dialogue, because it can take a while from a conversation to a contract. Yeah, it can do. I mean, I had a conversation in 2019, I delivered a talk, and that has led to a whole lot of business this year, but that was back then. Yes. So it's sometimes a load of conversations that you're having that will then lead to something more. So it's your short-term, medium and long-term strategy that you're looking. Yeah.
I was, you know, you started to hit on there something about the qualifications and the fact that it is an unregulated market.
Yeah.
You know, people can theoretically go off tomorrow and call themselves a coach. What's your recommendation about that? Because obviously it costs money to train and become a coach. Do you have any thought about, I guess, the kind of that qualification route and what might be a reasonable recommendation for people?
It depends what it is you want to do and where you want to work and who you wish to work with. So for some corporate environments, for example, they are not going to work with you unless you have particular qualifications or you are linked to particular coaching bodies. So that will basically be not a space for you if you haven't got that. But as I said, that's why I said it depends who you wish to work with and what you wish to do. If you have a wealth of experience, you've also got experience in facilitation and group work and things like that already, that's a good start. Coaching is a very specific skill as well. So understanding the nature of what's the difference between coaching, mentoring, consultancy, they are all very different skills, and knowing how to do that. I think if you're going to look at particular areas, because some coaches, like myself, I'm quite holistic, so I use hypnotherapy, I use mind work. I think if you're going to do anything like that, you need to take a course, you need to be supervised, you need to do your due diligence on that for yourself, because you can really impact people. And I get very scared if I hear about coaches who are doing that work who have not done that journey. My training means that I have to have done all of those things as well. I am supervised, I have to be supervised. I'm, as part of me upkeeping my certification, I have to do that. And my insurance covers all of that as well. So I get very concerned when I see particular types of work being done by people who have not done that work and done that journey themselves. And also, as part of it, you have to do it yourself. It's painful and horrible and icky, but you do it yourself as well. And I'm very conscious of that. So I would prefer, where possible, that people invested in that time, invested in some of those courses. But it does depend on how you plan to use it, what you plan to do, and where you wish to go with it. And you mentioned before somebody who's had like 20 odd years experience in a particular field, experience with working with teenagers in particular. If you've already got, what you need to do in order to work with teenagers, you've got your licensing, etc., to work with minors. You've got all of that, and that. That is a very different thing for somebody who's decided, was a plumber last week and is now going to be a coach to teenagers. Yeah. So I think if you've come from that background, you have all of that, and you've got maybe a program that you wish to develop or something you've already used and you want to do that, I think that's slightly different. And you're going to do that, great, because you know how to handle that situation, you know what to do. And again, get yourself linked to another body. There's a place for complaints if needed to. There's a place for assurance for somebody to go to, so someone can see that you are abiding by some kind of guidance and some kind of rules and regulations. If you don't wish to go down a official qualification route. And that's what I would say on that space, I think.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I mean, in a way, it almost begs the question, but I think that's kind of going down a bit of a rabbit's warren about, why isn't it regulated? Because there's a sea change, isn't there, between the likes of, you or Stephen or, other people I know about who've spent huge time, invested a lot. And in a way, you almost want that possibly should be regulated, right? To kind of safeguard, I suppose, or kind of showcase. But I guess by the same token, particularly at this age group, there's probably quite a lot of barriers to entry for a lot of people into a lot of different jobs anyway. So hey ho, rabbit warren. I mean, the coaching world, and Kim, you sort of said this at the beginning of the call as well. It does feel as though anyone and everyone, it's like everyone wants to be a coach. There's a lot of people not only wanting to be a coach, there's a lot of people teaching coaching skills. The coaching world seems to have grown and developed hugely over the last 20, 30 years. I know this feels like quite a broad question, but what's your view, I suppose, on the coaching landscape? What do you sort of see coming down the line, or kind of what would your predictions be for the coaching landscape for the next few years?
I do think there will be more likely to be tightening up and regulation coming in. I do think that's gonna happen. It has grown exponentially and completely, the pandemic has made every, man, woman and their dog decide that they're going to be a coach. But some of those people have also fallen off after the pandemic because they realize it's not realistic or sustainable. And I feel saddened sometimes that the term is used almost like a negative word for some people. I'm very proud that I'm a coach. I'm proud of what I do and the work that I do, the work that my colleagues do, but it's got a lot of negative connotations. In some spaces, we're almost like, people like estate agents or something. It's like a term, and people think about certain people that okay, or tax collectors, it becomes not a positive term. And I have nothing against estate agents or tax collectors, just want to say, but that idea that it's not always seen as people acting with integrity. And there's a lot of hype around things, and you get, particularly if you're on certain spaces, you get the 6 figures, oh, I gotta do this, I gotta do. And I'm like, okay, that's really interesting. And all these overnight sensations. I'm like, I know overnight sensations. I've crawled here after like 10 years of working, doing lots of stuff to do what I do. So there's a lot of that happens, and you can be sucked into this glitz and glamour of the way of coaching, and that's not the reality for most coaches. That's really not. Most coaches, or most people that even start small businesses, barely earning minimum wage, working really, really hard and not necessarily getting where they need to. And that's often because the business development skills are missing from the actual things. All that lovely training, that's great, but you know, Stephen asked, how do you start? How do you get your first clients? How do you kind of do that? That is often missing from so many. But I'm involved, I've got fingers in a few pies. I'm involved in one space which offers online kind of support for coaches, light workers, healers, etc., for the business side of it at low cost, because we saw that there were so many people who did not resonate with that 6-figure kind of marketing style, didn't feel that was something that they wanted to be behind, and wanted to build a business with their ethics in mind, supporting others and not spending a fortune to get that support. So that's one of the things that I was involved with, setting up with 8 other coaches, because we saw that and think that it's important that people have that. This is, by the way, no means of a plug for that, but it was very specifically because we can see that that's a gap. So hopefully more courses do more to support their coaches to develop and build their businesses. And, you know, really do not just look at the training, but look at how do they have sustainable businesses, rather than churning out loads and loads and loads of coaches who aren't successful in that way.
No, and I think that's it's a key point, isn't it? Because you know, I guess the next question I was going to ask you is then, what do you see as being, I guess, the skills, or, you know, obviously there's the things that you can imagine. A good coach should be able to listen, be empathetic, ask good questions, but there is this other point about you're effectively running your own business if you're working for yourself. So there is this need around the kind of the business development side. If it's probably quite hard to break it down into a kind of a typical day or a typical bit a week, but what kind of proportion, if we were to say it on per week basis, what proportion of that time would you estimate is spent on business development, or that kind of wider, like you were saying before, you did a talk 3 years ago that's materializing into some work now, but sometimes you put in that graft into that marketing space. How would you break down that proportion of time?
It's a slightly strange time, because I'm also delivering training as well. So I train and I coach. So I do a lot of leadership training. So if we looked at this week, even though it's a full-day week, I was training Tuesday for 3 hours, then troubleshooting before I even got out of bed, making sure that we had all the slides ready and everything like that. Then I was coaching a client in the afternoon, and I've got a 10-year-old, so then I was entertaining him because he still wasn't back at school yet. So that would be part of my day. Then the next day was with my child, but then spending time looking at notes, preparing for the next thing, making sure I was planned for my clients that were coming on the next day as well. Delivered training Thursday morning, Thursday afternoon, another client. Friday morning, had a long meeting with one of my associates, and then today with you. But at the same time, I've had messages from my assistant telling me about the social media stuff she's prepared for me, and I've got to deal with that. I'm dealing with contracts, so it's a mix. I'd probably say a day and a half is dealing with the back end stuff, with contracts, finance, meetings, doing this kind of work,
the admin,
all of that. And before I had the lovely Holly, who is my saving grace, I'd be doing all my social media as well. Usually at 10 o'clock at night, because that's the only time I could fit it in. So it's that kind of juggle.
And if someone, you know, really knows, so if I'm thinking about one person in particular who really wanted to join this course today, and she says she's a real introvert. I don't believe, by the way, that introverts don't have business development skills, but are there ways in which people can work as coaches where in effect they're not doing any business development, but they're just sort of working on an associate basis? And yeah. And then
you can be an associate. So there are quite a lot of companies out there that want you to coach for them, want you to deliver facilitated sessions for them, or deliver training for them. So if you have those skills, there are companies that are happy to hire you. You won't earn as much because obviously you're not doing the business development work. You're just basically rocking up and delivering. And to give you a kind of idea of fees, so for a coaching session, you might earn about 50 to 60 pounds for an hour. Doing a coaching session. That's an associate fee. That's kind of,
I'd say that's pretty standard.
That's a pretty standard associate fee. And delivering training might be about 200 pounds for maybe 2 hours or whatever like that. So that's about the kind of fees you get as an associate. There are some people that just do associate work all the time, and they do it for multiple people, and that's what they want to do. That's how they earn their money, and it's fine. You may or may not see the same client multiple times, or you may have a series of sessions with them. So it depends on how you feel about how you wish to deliver your coaching, or what your coaching ethos or practice is, to be honest. And I would say get your LinkedIn profile sorted. Definitely get your LinkedIn profile up.
Good, I'm glad you say that, because we say that.
Oh, it's so important. That's where people find you. And if you're looking for associate work, you'll find it on LinkedIn. You'll find those kind of organizations on LinkedIn, hands down. So they're there. The other thing is, again, if you've got links to any companies that you've worked with before, or anyone doing that, you can always go and see if they're looking for anybody. But I just got to say about this whole thing about being an introvert and social media. People may not realize this, but I'm actually an introvert. I'm not a big fan of social media. And you can choose how you show up and what you do and how you do it. You don't have to be on camera. You can have a lovely background, have words on there. You don't have to do that all the time. And if, you know, once you've made a little bit of money, you can outsource that as quickly as possible. I'm really big on outsourcing, right? Your zone of genius, the thing that you love, you're passionate about, you do that. The things you don't like as much, the first thing I ever did was get a bookkeeper and accountant, because like, right, great, all these little receipts, somebody do something about it. Because I would spend ages doing it, and that was it was just painful. It was like dragging through treacle, and I didn't enjoy it, and I knew it had to be done. So the first thing I did was outsource that work, because then I knew it was done. And you know, it was worth me paying that piece of money to get that job done. And I know in starting out, we don't always have lots of money coming in, and we're not always earning loads. And what I did with some people was sometimes swap skills when I was starting right at the beginning, because like, I can't pay you, but we can do this. And, you know, and I did that at the very beginning, because like, well, okay, I need to build. How am I else am I going to build? So things like that do help you build and grow your business, help you get supported. And whether you're an introvert or you see yourself as an extrovert, there's ways of you connecting with your audience. If your audience is not on Instagram, you do not need to be, right? If your audience, I mean, if you're dealing with teenagers, they're probably more likely to be Instagram and Snapchat and TikTok, right? Because that's the space that they wish to be in. But is it the teenagers that are employing you, or is it their parents?
Good question.
Right? If it's their parents, they're on Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn, right? So depending on your audience will depend on what medium you're going to use to connect to them. And if you're somebody who actually feels more comfortable giving a talk somewhere or a presentation, do that. Do that. And then from there, you want your one-to-ones so that you can develop relationships. I don't like big networking. I'm funny, we met at a networking event, but I'm sort of like, we'll find someone and then we'll end up talking all night rather than having to kind of deal with lots and lots of people. So there are ways, and you adapt it for whatever your outcomes are, your goals are, and the audience that you wish to connect with.
I totally agree. And you know, to a degree, I always think it's a case of, well, you know, if that's who you are, I think you can own the space. You can definitely own the space. I don't even use it in her branding and marketing. You know, I'm the introverted coach, because that's probably going to bring, you know.
And I know somebody who does that. She's
well, there you go.
Specifically targets introverts. She's on LinkedIn. She's everywhere. She was the LinkedIn voice. She has a newsletter aimed at introverted leaders. That's what she does.
Yeah, brilliant. You see, there's a way to make it your asset. The last couple of questions I was going to ask, so you kindly already shared an example of your sort of your typical day and your typical week. This is possibly a slightly, I don't know, kind of controversial question, but is there anything that you don't like about coaching?
It's not that I don't like about coaching. I would say that because I work for corporate clients as well as have my own clients, I don't always necessarily get to choose my clients, but I only will work with people that I can connect with anyway. So I might be given someone to have a conversation with, hopefully we connect, otherwise it makes it really difficult. So not being able to have complete exclusive choice sometimes, but also knowing that people change, develop in different ways, and sometimes you're like, I can see it, I can feel it, I can hear it, but you can't say anything, and you're sometimes sitting in your hands and you've got to wait for them to get there and you can see it. So there's sometimes that when I'm like, oh come on, I know, I can see it, it's right in front of me, come, let's get there. But that would be the only thing, because you know, and I get so excited for them and seeing them thrive and seeing them change. I love that bit. So I think that's the only bit, not at the moment, because I also have of the way I work, not exclusively saying, right, I'm cherry picking my clients.
Yes.
But again, as I said, you have to do a connection with whoever you're coaching. You do have to speak to them. They have to work for you. And I advise anybody, even if they're seeing me and they say, oh, but I want you to speak to 2 other people. And then make your decision.
That's a really, that's good advice, isn't it?
Definitely. You've got to. Coaching per se, there's lots of it I love. Managing the coaching business is probably the bit I'm not as much of a fan of, which is why I bring people in to do that bit. Because do I want to spend my days looking at contracts? No, not really.
I don't think many people who want to do that either.
No, but you know, I have some friends who love a spreadsheet. They really do adore a spreadsheet. I've got a particular friend in mind I'm thinking of, and I love her to bits, and she gets excited about spreadsheets. I can't say I feel that way about spreadsheets. So I find people who do have those kind of feelings about those things and get the right people in. I always believe in finding experts for whatever it is I need, and there's lots of things that I'm good at, but there's lots of things that I'm not great at or good at. And I'm like, do you know what? Who can do that? And who can do that really well? And how do I get you to come and support me? And it's important to kind of know that you can't do this journey on your own. It's not an easy one. And having a good support network and good support structure is really good for you. It's really good. I also would advise, if people haven't, get supervision. Have somebody that you can talk to, because there's a lot that comes to you sometimes, and you need somewhere to have that conversation, to thrash ideas out, especially if you're working on your own. To have that space to get things out of your head, and to also maybe look at things with a different perspective. And I think that's really quite crucial.
And where would they, I mean, if they've gone through a sort of more formal qualification, then presumably they get that supervision, don't they? Not
always. So,
I mean, that might then be a criteria we recommend. You know, if you are going to go and get some training, actually screen the organisations that A, probably give you some support around the business development side, but B, also provide that supervision. If the qualification doesn't, is there a place? I mean, I genuinely don't know. Is there a place that people can go where there are coaching supervisors?
About a specific place for coaching supervisors, but what I have found is any courses that are training coaching supervisors, you can obviously find them that way. If you're linked to any larger coaching organizations as an associate, or, you know, as a member, you might find them that way. So it's worth being part of a coaching community. Being part of several communities is actually quite useful. So you might want something like a business community, right? That helps you with the business and growing your business. You might want something, depending on your location or where you wish to work or the types of people you wish to work with, you might want to have like an interest group. So if you work with women or teenagers, etc., join something like that. And then if you're in a particular location, you want to do that. I'm just thinking, Stephen, because you're in North Kim, I don't know what your views are, what you want to do. But, you know, if, Stephen, you've got a local community around you or a local networking group or something, it's worth being part of it, because networks are how you grow your business. It's also how you get referrals, but also partnerships, working with others and finding those people that can support you as you develop and grow. You don't have to do it all on your own. I think that was my biggest revelation of realizing, you know what, I've only got this much capacity and I've got this much work. So could somebody come and help me do it? And I'm like, yeah, cool, fine, great. So suddenly I've now got a team. So I can, you know, I can actually have so much work happening without me delivering it all the time.
Yes.
And it meant, you know, when I caught COVID and I was lying in my bed dealing with COVID, things were still happening with me still lying in my bed, rather than thinking, oh gosh, what am I going to do? Whereas before, my business didn't exist if I couldn't get out of bed.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, those are sort of like the main questions that I had. Kim, Stephen, if you guys got any other things that you wanted to kind of throw in and ask. You don't have to have done, but, you know, just saying if it was.
You've mentioned sort of qualifications and things, but what is there I'm looking at stuff, there seem to be several different routes that appear to be recognised. Is there any is there a like a gold standard, or does it just making sure that they are, you know, they give you the support you've described and you've got some kind of license, or if maybe an insurance company recognises them, something like that?
See who accredits their course and, you know, what you get as being part of that. And as I said, it depends where you want to go. So if you're going to certain corporate environments, they might want an ICF qualification. So if you want to do sort of the coaching, Institute of Leadership and Management coaching level 7, you know, that would be something that is recognised in quite a lot of places. And I think that's about a year-long sort of master's level course. So that's that one. But then there are other spaces. So I'm a coach of excellence. So I'm accredited and I can do, I can give CPD points. I can do that for group facilitation. And I went that route because I'd already spent time doing my NLP practitioner and executive coaching. And if I were to do ICF, I'd have to start all over again and not use what I've already got, which didn't sit with my methodology and my ethos of coaching. So I did a slightly different route. But then my previous qualification, I've also got academic qualifications as well, so that kind of all goes with the bag of it. But if you're saying, right, I'm just going to be a pure coach and go into that, those kind of coaching qualifications, something that's ideally accredited, and nice if it's linked to a university as well, those also give a nice bit of kudos as well. So all very long and well established coaching organizations. So some like barefoot coaching, a lot of people have done barefoot coaching. They've kind of got a long history. They've got a lot of alumni. They've got a lot of support. One of my coaches, she's a barefoot coach. So there are certain groups that you see a lot of people have come through, and it's not like, you know, a 3-hour course online and you get a certificate, and that certificate doesn't really mean anything. They should be supporting you to have practical takeaways as well. You need to have a certain amount of coaching hours, making sure that you're practically doing what you're being trained to do, and having some kind of feedback mechanism. So if you've delivered the coaching and that you've been assessed, so someone's seen it, someone's been able to say that you've hit this particular criteria. So looking at coaches that have that, and also if you're struggling on the course, there's someone you can talk to, and you can get support to finish any essays or anything else. So all of those things are what you're looking at when you're looking at a course, because loads of places will say, yeah, we'll deliver this course for you, but then you don't get any live training or anybody observing you or anybody sitting there while you're having that conversation. So you actually don't know if you're doing it right, or you don't know if it's, and that's the same with NLP programs. There are some NLP programs where you're doing the work, but there's no observers. So
Yeah.
And that can be quite dangerous if you're doing certain work. So I'm like, okay, so if there's no observers, I'm not even going to give you my money, you know.
Yeah.
That's not safe. Because if I worry about anything, who do I ask for help?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's really important that you feel safe, supported, and that the person that you're working with is also while you're learning.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Really good. Stephen, did we kind of cover off your questions about how you start out and that kind of process?
Yeah, you did very well. Thank you.
Thanks I mean, I don't know if you've got a view on this. Sole trader, limited company. Is there I don't know if that's too detailed or.
Again, depends, right? If you're, bootstrapping and just starting a little bit, sole trader, simply because you're not hit with the same financial bits. And, if you're only earning, say, like 10 grand in your side hustle, the limited company, you end up spending most of that doing your tax returns.
Yeah, okay.
However, if you're going to work with companies, it's usually better to be a limited company because they prefer that. There's more protection as a limited company, but what it comes down to is how much you're potentially going to earn or would like to earn, of which one you do first. I've done both. And I've closed a limited company and opened a limited company, and I now have both, and I'm about to close my sole trader and solely have the limited company, but I've been doing them in tandem. Because different contracts with different people.
Fair enough. Oh, that's really unbelievably helpful. And look, I mean, I've definitely, we've kind of taken up your time, and I'm really, really grateful for all of your time. So just a huge thank you. And
most welcome, and just hopefully you enjoy your coaching journeys.
Yeah, sure.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
All right. Take care, everyone. Bye.